"This is the last gift I will ever give you," my husband coldly declares, sliding the divorce papers across the table to me. He confesses his plan to marry someone else, reducing me to nothing more than a financial asset he used over the years. The man I've shared so many moments with has revealed himself to be utterly despicable. This marks the beginning of my tale of vengeance. My name is Helen, and this year, as I turn 52, I face a pivotal moment. Tomorrow isn't just another day. It marks the end of a long period of debt, which I will finally settle. My husband Scott and I have poured our sweat and tears into our life together since we tied the knot 22 years ago when I was 32 and he was 34. He owned a liquor store, a family business passed down from his deceased parents. Meanwhile, I worked in an office. Our paths crossed through a mutual friend, and we began dating to marry. Back then, my only worry was whether he would expect me to help run his store. I was a financial consultant, advising on insurance and investments for both individuals and businesses. I earned a decent salary, enjoyed my work immensely, and was studying for a certification to advance my career further. When Scott proposed, he supported my ambitions wholeheartedly. "I know how hard you've been working for your certification, and I want to support you in any way I can," he assured me. He had enough staff to manage the store, so he encouraged me to chase my dreams. His support was crucial in my decision to marry him. He seemed genuinely kind and supportive, always in my corner. We set out to build our lives with a clear understanding. He would manage his business, and I would focus on my career. Our marriage appeared to be flourishing. However, about a year into our marriage, things began to change as he continued with his business. One day, while enjoying a rare day off at home, I was vacuuming under the bed when the machine dragged out a heap of papers. Given that we had moved in less than 8 months ago, the mess was surprising. Curious, I picked up a crumpled piece of paper and smoothed it out. The bold header caught my eye immediately. Reminder of payment. Below it, an outstanding debt of $320,000 in Scott's name stared back at me. It couldn't be just $3,000. My mind reeled with confusion. Why had he kept such a significant debt hidden from me? As soon as Scott returned home that day, I confronted him. "What is this debt? What's going on?" I demanded. His response was quick. "It's not what you think. This debt was left by my parents," he explained. It turned out this wasn't a personal debt, but rather one tied to his liquor store, inherited alongside the business. The debt was secured against both the land and the house we lived in, and he had no intention of renouncing the inheritance. I realized it wasn't his debt, but that didn't mean it could be ignored. "But this is a payment reminder. Aren't you supposed to be making monthly payments?" I asked, trying to understand the full scope of the situation. "I do make payments, but sales can be inconsistent," he replied. "Sometimes during slower months, I can't cover the payments. I have to prioritize paying my staff, so I've asked the creditors to wait." His explanation seemed reasonable at first, but the presence of a final notice on the reminder was alarming. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry," he added quickly. "Don't stress about it. The business is generally doing well, and look, we haven't been evicted or anything, right?" Although what he said was true, the revelation and his initial secrecy left a troubling impression. I stared at him, my anxiety clear. Then he threw me a curveball. "If you're so worried, why don't you help pay it off? You're earning quite a bit, aren't you?" His suggestion made me uneasy. After all, the store wasn't mine. But in a marriage, aren't partners supposed to support each other? "My debt is also yours," he added abruptly. "If my store went under, it would affect a lot of people. It's become crucial to our community." He was right about one thing. His store was a vital part of the local area, nestled in the suburbs where other shops and supermarkets were scarce. He also sold fresh goods like meat and fish, and even offered a home delivery service. I had visited the store several times and seen how bustling it was, with customers often expressing their gratitude for its presence in the neighborhood. "Please, I need you to help me with the debt," he pleaded, his eyes earnest. "I'll keep focusing on the business, but I need your help." His dedication to his work was undeniable, and the thought of his store closing was painful for him and the community that relied on it. Being married means supporting each other through thick and thin. If he was struggling, it seemed only right for me to step in. "Okay, I'll help. I'll put as much as I can towards the debt every month from my salary. You focus on running the store," I agreed, knowing that while I could assist financially, the operational side was his responsibility. I was glad he trusted me above all else, but this marked the beginning of a change in him. 4 years passed since I started contributing to the debt, and his late nights became more frequent. "What kept you out so late? You reek of alcohol," I would ask when he stumbled in. "Just had a few drinks with customers," he'd reply casually. My worry deepened one day when I asked, "Did you make this month's payment?" For some reason, his response didn't come as easily as it should have. His tone was condescending. "I did, last week. You know the store relies on you. You'd better keep up with the payments," he said dismissively whenever he came home drunk. Initially, I dismissed his demands as the ramblings of a drunkard, but his repeated assertions began to irritate me deeply. It seemed he thought it entirely normal that I should shoulder his financial burdens. "By the way, Benjamin just had his 3rd kid," he mentioned offhandedly one day. Benjamin was his old high school friend, also a business owner like Scott, whose wife worked with him in their store. This comment made me reflect on our situation. "I've been meaning to talk to you," I said, finally voicing my long-held desire. "Don't you think it's time for us to start a family?" His reaction was cold and dismissive. "A baby? My business is just beginning to pick up, and we're still in debt. How can we think of such a responsibility now?" That was his firm stance. "But Benjamin has 3 children now," I countered, trying to hold back my frustration. "Surely we can manage one." "His situation is different. His parents are still well, and his wife is actively involved in the business," he retorted, making it clear that our circumstances were not the same. This conversation dashed my hopes of starting a family anytime soon. "So, until all your debts are cleared, we can't consider having a baby?" I asked, seeking clarity. "That's how it's going to be. If you make enough money and pay off the debts quickly, then I'll think about it," he replied, his smirk making me feel uneasy, yet pushing me to resolve the debt faster. I was naively committed, driven by the desire to start a family. Despite the irrationality of his demands, I became more dedicated than ever. I pursued additional qualifications, took promotional exams, and secured salary increases. I began to earn significantly more than other women my age, even making advance payments on his debts. My efforts were relentless, fueled by a mixture of hope and desperation. The debt was a relentless burden, and before I knew it, I had turned 40. The dream of having children slowly slipped away. Despite this, I comforted myself with the thought that I still had my husband, Scott. He needed me, and I believed in our life together, which kept me content. As time passed, Scott began to return home increasingly later. Sometimes he wouldn't come back until the morning, explaining that he had been with a customer and lost track of time as he strove to keep the store afloat. Seeing his dedication, I felt compelled to support him as best I could. We were in this together, sailing toward a better future. Years rolled on, and finally the day approached when I would make the last payment on the debt. All the sacrifices, all the skipped luxuries, soon I wouldn't have to hold back anymore. I could start spending my hard-earned money as I wished. Reflecting on our marriage, I realized how much of our life had revolved around money. We had never taken a real vacation or even enjoyed a meal at a nice restaurant. Now, in our 50s, I hoped we could start enjoying those things. On the day the final payment was due, I took a day off to prepare a special celebration. I cooked an elaborate dinner, complete with a bottle of wine and Scott's favorite chocolate cake. I set the table beautifully, eager to celebrate our newfound financial freedom together. When everything was laid out perfectly, I stood back and thought about how quickly the last 22 years had flown by. It feels like it's been a long time, but the last 22 years have gone by so fast, haven't they, honey? I remarked as Scott walked in. His head was bowed and his shoulders trembled. Was he crying from happiness, or was there another reason behind his emotion? To my utter shock, he erupted into a kind of laughter I had never heard from him before. "What the hell is going on? Are you okay?" I asked, bewildered and alarmed. With an air of audacity, my husband made a shocking declaration. "You are dismissed now. I'm grateful to you for the past 22 years. Thanks to you paying off all my debt, I'm a free man. Great job. I don't need you anymore." His words left me stunned. "What are you talking about?" I managed to say, genuinely confused. He pulled a document from his bag. "This is my last present to you," he said as the bold letters of a divorce petition seared into my vision. Proudly, he continued, "I've decided to marry someone else, so you are no longer of any use to me. Thanks for being my cash dispenser until now." "Are you getting remarried? Have you been cheating on me all this time?" I asked, piecing together his habitual late returns under the pretense of work or social engagements, while I slaved away to clear his debts. His smug expression did not falter. "I am not unfaithful. I have already found my next wife. I wanted to divorce you and marry her, which is why I waited for you to clear my debt." Tears welled up as the absurdity of the situation hit me. The lavish feast I had prepared blurred before my tear-filled eyes. "Get the hell out of here," he snapped, thrusting the divorce papers at me. My anger surged, boiling my blood faster than sorrow or despair could settle in. "Okay, but you won't regret this?" I forced the words out. "No, I won't. Why would I regret divorcing an old hag like you?" Old hag? If I were hurt, he would be an old fart, I thought to myself, amused by his delusional self-image. His misconception was so ludicrous that it helped me regain my composure. Taking the divorce papers, I declared, "I'm going to take this with me for now." With a heavy heart, I gathered my belongings and left the home we had shared for 22 years. The abrupt end to my 22-year marriage left me reeling. Alone at last, tears of emptiness and frustration streamed down my face. I needed closure and justice. Soon after, I consulted my attorney to draft a divorce agreement and sent it to Scott. I also requested a background report on his new fiancée to see what I was dealing with. Not long after, Scott called me, his voice thick with fury. "Hey, Helen, what the hell is this document?" he barked through the phone. I could almost see his face turning a bright shade of red. "It's a divorce agreement. What about it?" I replied, keeping my tone even and calm. "I know what it is, but what's this loan agreement? Why do I have to pay you back?" His voice was full of disbelief and anger, confused by the financial claims I had laid out. "This isn't just about any loan. It's about the money I paid on your behalf during our marriage," I explained. He seemed to struggle with the concept, protesting that I had chosen to make those payments out of my goodwill. "This is ridiculous. You decided to do this on your own, didn't you? Why are you digging up the past now?" he continued, unable to grasp the shift in our circumstances. "I did it as your wife," I responded firmly. "But if we're getting divorced, that changes things. It's only fair you repay me." The reality of his situation seemed to hit him then. He hadn't considered the financial implications when he asked for the divorce. Armed with my knowledge from years of working with insurance and investments and having contacts with experienced attorneys, I was prepared. The amount he owed me, including interest, was over $360,000. I was adamant about getting back exactly that amount. When he saw the name of a well-known local attorney on the document, he finally understood the gravity of the situation. "You know I don't have that kind of money," he protested weakly. "Sell the store to fund it then. If that's what it takes, so be it," I suggested. His response was desperate. "If I do that, I won't have anything left." "You're only 54. I pointed out. "You could still find a job. It's time you figured it out, just as I have." My resolve was clear. I was determined to start my next chapter on my terms, without the weight of his debts or deceit. The conversation was going nowhere, and I was ready to end the call, but curiosity got the better of me. "So how's it going with your new bride-to-be?" I asked. "None of your business," he snapped back. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. It sounded like he was having a tough time. "Good luck," I said, amusement still lacing my voice as I prepared to hang up. "Wait a minute," he interrupted urgently. "I've decided not to marry her. We can start over," he pleaded. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Start over? Don't kid yourself. I don't want you," I yelled, my patience finally breaking. Hanging up, I was left to ponder. Had I appeared more ridiculous than him to others during our 22 years together? I had respected him until the divorce and watched him work tirelessly for the store and his customers. But now I realized he was just a fool. The situation with his supposed remarriage began innocently enough. He flirted with a part-time university student named Elizabeth, exclaiming, "You are so cute, Elizabeth. Will you be my wife?" She played along, jokingly responding, "Well, I would think about it if you let me be a full-time housewife." But he took her just seriously. The idea of marrying a man nearly 42 years her senior was nothing but a joke to her. Yet it turned serious when he persistently pressed her to marry him, leading her parents to intervene and obtain a restraining order against him. Reading the private investigation report, I found myself laughing so hard that I started hyperventilating. All those nights he came home late, I assumed he was slaving away for his business. In reality, he was at bars and strip joints hitting on young girls. Boasting about his charm, he'd say, "I'm surprisingly popular with young girls. I'm a salesman, so I have this easy-to-talk-to aura and get along well." The report revealed the sad truth of his delusions and desperation. People often comment on how young I look and ask, "Don't you think so?" His remarks made the girls cringe, and he saw me only as someone to provide him with money, disregarding his older wife. His distorted view of himself turned him into a rather ridiculous figure who almost ended up in legal trouble with the police. It might have even been less complicated if he had been unfaithful, but he wasn't appealing enough to find a mistress. The whole debacle started when his friend Benjamin celebrated becoming a grandfather. As soon as he saw my grandchild, he absurdly declared he wanted one too. I sharply told him that he shouldn't even think like that, especially since I was the one clearing his debts. He was utterly embarrassed. Looking back, I'm relieved I didn't waste my golden years with him. After we divorced, despite some confusion over who owned what, he didn't fight the settlement because my lawyer was well known for being tough. It made me wonder how someone so lacking in resolve could have managed a business at all. In the end, he had to sell his shop to pay me off. Just before the sale, all his employees left him, and his customers were upset that he was selling a family business just to settle his divorce. This sent ripples of shock through our community, and people thought he got what he deserved. The whole situation turned into a local spectacle, almost comedic in how pitiful he appeared. Even if he hadn't sold the shop, the negative publicity would have likely run him out of business. Selling before hitting rock bottom was probably the only smart decision he made. However, the sale didn't cover everything, so he still works part-time to pay me back. Occasionally, he sends me messages, admitting he was at fault and pleading for a reunion. Even after I block him, he tries to reach me from new numbers. My attorney has warned him sternly, if he tries to contact me again, we'll take legal action and get a restraining order. Since then, the calls have finally stopped. Reflecting on everything, I realize how fortunate I am to have escaped a life tethered to his failures and fantasies. His chase after a youthful mirage not only embarrassed him, but also alienated everyone around him. As he continues his part-time job to settle his dues, I'm grateful for the peace and independence I found. The whole ordeal feels like a cautionary tale about living beyond one's means and the pitfalls of refusing to accept reality. He is petrified of the attorney. And guess what my job is now? I'm a marriage counselor. When I turned 52, I joined my friend's matchmaking service, a complete shift from my previous role. I used to work in a job that involved helping singles manage their finances, navigate insurance, and other practical aspects of life. However, I realized I wanted something more personally fulfilling, so I leaped to become a part of a business that helps people find love. Here, I focus on helping couples start their relationships with open, honest discussions about everything that matters, including tricky topics like money and life plans. Our straightforward approach has resonated with our clients, and as a result, our membership numbers have soared. Having experienced quite a few personal ups and downs myself, I'm driven by the desire to help others avoid the pitfalls I encountered. Although my current salary is lower than what I earned before, the joy and satisfaction I get from assisting others in finding happiness is immeasurable. Each day, I help people build strong, lasting relationships, and this work has become my new source of joy. After separating from my ex-husband, I discovered my happiness, and now I consider myself a bridge to happiness for others. Every day brings a new opportunity to positively impact someone's life, and this role has given me a profound sense of purpose and fulfillment.